We are in Auburn, and Phantom Limb is with me because they're performing tonight. I'm super excited because I've been a fan of y'all's for a few years. I think I probably saw you play in Birmingham at one point years ago, but I've mainly been a fan through the albums, like through your recorded material.
Thanks, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, specifically, I wanted to start the conversation talking about what really caught my attention, which was Pastoral. I had not really seen that until, or listened to it until about November, December of just this past year. Mm-hmm. And when I heard that, I was pretty blown away because I think it was, a friend shared a song on Instagram. And when I first heard it, it just really struck a chord with me. And awesome. It's a fucking awesome album. Like, I don't know what else to say.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah, I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Pastoral was, it was a lot of fun to make. It was also very stressful to make, but it was cool. I think so that record was made, we started doing it right before COVID, and then COVID happened, and obviously we couldn't see each other or anything like that. And I had always kind of been interested in learning how to record and that type of stuff. So basically how Pastoral got made was I was forced into, being locked inside of my apartment for a year. And we had these songs that we had written together. And I didn't really, no one knew what was happening during COVID, right? So I didn't really know if we were ever going to be able to play live music again, or, if Phantom Limb was going to be a thing post-COVID. So it was kind of the thing that sort of kept me motivated to still be a person during that time was
yeah.
Figuring out how to record in my apartment and figure out a way to document the songs that we wrote together. And yeah.
Oh yeah. Sorry, I just hopped right in there. It reminds me of a phone conversation you and I had while you were working on Pastoral. How doomer you were, in the first COVID summer. Mm-hmm. You're like, yeah, dude, live music's just dead. It's never coming back.
Yeah.
It's never going to be the same.
I legitimately thought that.
I thought so too. Yeah. I mean, you're not alone, yeah.
Your boy has a problem with catastrophizing. So I was so when COVID happened, I was like, okay, this is it. Live music's never going to be a thing again. And I think that kind of worked towards Pastoral's advantage too, because, we had, right before COVID happened, we were experimenting with adding electronics and stuff like that into Phantom Limb. But obviously when we were workshopping those songs live, I was playing stuff on SB404 and also playing guitar, and we had another guitarist, and Peyton and Rolf were obviously playing bass and drums. But when I sat down to actually record Pastoral, recreating that stuff live wasn't really a concern for me because I thought live music was never going to come back, I guess. So I think kind of freeing Phantom Limb from, worrying about how this is going to translate to a live setting is the context for why Pastoral sounds the way it does. You know what I mean?
I mean, just the juxtaposition of Townies to Pastoral is crazy because Townies to me is much more of a garage psych, a lot of different genres that you could put in there. Mm-hmm. But if other than the vocals, I would not think it was the same band between the two projects. And I was interested to hear, and I'm interested to see you guys tonight, how you do take some of those songs from Pastoral and play them live, because for example, I'll just bring this up and I'm interested to see, you can comment on it if you want, or you can just let me see it tonight. But the end of Larry's theme, where it just gets, double time and it gets pretty crazy, and then it goes right into Guppy and it's a bit more. Do you guys play those two one right after each other live, or?
We did on the last tour. We're not really doing it. We're not playing Larry's theme on this tour, but it has been so. Like I was saying before, having the mindset of we're not gonna try to recreate Pastoral live because who knows if live music is gonna come back. is a double-edged sword. I think it made for like a really cool record, but it has been a adventure trying to actually recreate those songs back live now. The last the last tour that we did, Peyton knows what I'm about to say.
Yeah, let me boil that down for you.
Okay.
Let me make some preserves real quick. Or was it? It's not a confit. It's a coulis.
You're the chef.
It goes on dessert. I'll come back to it. I'm going to scream it in like 10 minutes. So I think for about a year after Andrew finished Pastoral, we were figuring out how to actualize it in a live setting. And that was like learning parts. That was like learning how to play to a click. That was Andrew having a laptop on stage with Ableton Live, playing the tracks, and then having a MIDI cuer as well as the synth and his sampler, and playing like a guitar part and a half, and singing all the vocals. And up until about like 2 months ago, that was the live set. And I think just now we're kind of in the new chapter, which is like we did the thing where we played the album front to back, and that was the show. We did that for like a year.
Yeah.
And now Andrew's recently added the first new song to the set. Since then, Brendan has joined the band, and we're not playing the tracks anymore.
Yeah.
So it's a lot organic. Now we're in the Black Parade is Dead phase. For any MCR heads at home.
Yeah, I think it's like I think it's interesting because like it's almost kind of been like a circular journey with the Phantom Limb music since like the Pastoral writing session, or not writing sessions, but like the writing of that record and like the recording of it and stuff. Because to me, when I listen back to that record, even though it sounds like a rock band or something like that, it also sounds like pretty hermetic almost, and kind of like that record to me sounds very claustrophobic in a lot of ways, because I think it reminds me of sitting in my apartment until like 5 a.m. mixing something on a laptop. But it's like a pretty densely packed record sonically, and I feel like that's kind of how the live set, when we were playing to those tracks and we were trying to like actually just like recreate that record note for note live, that was what the experience was like. It was like very crushing. But now, especially on this tour, it kind of feels to me similar to how Phantom Limb was before COVID, but with like the electronics, the electronic element more fleshed out and more fully integrated into a band. And I think that's really cool. I really like that a lot, because not only is it like, it adds like a lot more texture and stuff to our set, but my favorite thing that has happened on this tour is, at least as far as like my part of it and like playing and stuff, is being able to like improvise with samples and the electronic elements. That's been like the most fun sort of musical discovery of like playing these live shows, is, hitting samples in a different way every night, and it's still working and feeling like the same song. And that's like, I feel like the ascended Phantom Limb is improvising with every every element of the set.
Well, you've also kind of conquered the songs to where they're working for you now.
Oh yeah, we were working for them. Now they're
inside out.
There's some really good audio samples that like stood out to me on Pastoral. Like some of them are just. I think what I'm about to say probably speaks to like how I would describe like Phantom Limb's music to somebody outside of like genre. Is I would say it is. I don't know how else to put it, but like serious without being too serious. Does that make? There's a certain level of like a goofiness, and I hope you take that as a good thing, because I love that.
Yeah. That's the point.
Even the name is, I think supposed to evoke like at least someone might chuckle or smile when they hear the band name and they're like, oh, I never thought about. Which actually, I wanted to ask: have you ever known anybody that experienced phantom limb? Because my grandfather had that and it sounded pretty awful.
No. The band name. We've gotten asked the band name question a bunch, and I feel like I should come up with some elaborate story or more elaborate backstory for it. But literally, the reason why Phantom Limb is called Phantom Limb is I was in Reed. We booked a show. We were like starting a new band, and we didn't have a band name. And I was like walking through Reed's bookstore, and I saw Phantom Limb on a spine, and I was like, "That's probably a good band name." Right? And I texted somebody, and it was like, "Is this like a cool band name?" And they're like, "Yes." I'm like, "Okay, cool."
Yeah,
it wasn't me.
It was not.
I was not the person he texted.
Yeah, your boy's not the best band name creator of all time, but I think it's retroactively taken on a lot of meaning, at least for me personally, because Phantom Limb insinuates sort of feeling lost or maybe feeling something that should be there that's not. And especially since I relocated to Atlanta about a year and a half ago, one of the main reasons why, I feel so compelled to do Phantom Limb is to hang out with Rolf and Peyton, who still live in Birmingham. And it's a way to, still be in their lives, even though we're not geographically close together.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I remember, I learned that you moved to Atlanta in a podcast because I was talking with someone, I think it was Alex Horn, about Birmingham bands, Atlanta bands, and stuff like that. And I think I brought up Pastoral as a Birmingham project, and he was like, well, I think it was made in Birmingham, but he lives in Atlanta now. So, and I had just moved out of Atlanta this past year, so it's kind of funny we never, crossed paths in that way.
Like ships in the night.
Yeah, yeah, there you go. But no, I mean, there is definitely an element in both Townies and Pastoral that really speaks to my, kind of interest in music. Yeah. I'm obviously, by the name of the podcast, by the name of, my Instagram and all that, I'm very into psychedelic music. That's kind of my main passion. And what I like about Phantom Limb's sound is that I can literally, all of my favorite psychedelic bands, there are moments in songs where I'm like, that's this psychedelic band, that's this one. Obviously it's not it's not a ripoff. It's I hear an element and then it's, in an ephemeral way, it's gone. And then I'm I might not hear that the next time or something. But
right.
I really, for example, on Townies, there's a few times where y'all have some guitar licks that the tone and the lick sounds so much like King Gizzard on the Dripping Tap. I think you might know what I'm talking about. I think y'all do it on Space Vamps on Townies. Just kind of the almost kind of shred guitar kind of sound, but that kind of stuff is just really fucking awesome to me. And I guess I'll transition into an actual question, so I'm not just rambling. But what's really important to me with psychedelic music, with anything that's in that realm, is that a lot of times it does encompass a visual aspect. And I mean, I really like the music videos that y'all put out from Pastoral. Those are really, really awesome. Just visually, I think that they did, whoever you made that with, which I can't remember the name of the people, but they did a really good job of visually representing what you were putting out.
Yeah, thanks. Alex Kiker did the video for Guppy. Me and him co-directed it, and he edited it and stuff. Yeah. And I did the other two videos. And yeah, they were a lot of fun to make. And yeah, I think the visual element specifically for Pastoral was really important to me. I specifically sought out this illustrator named Nick Stevenson from the UK to do the album cover because his art style is very warped perspective type stuff. And it was kind of that was kind of what I had in my brain, while I was recording the songs that we wrote and stuff. And I think giving someone a visual element to grab onto is obviously super important when you're, trying to put art out there. And like the Dumbo Returns video, I feel like that video specifically adds a lot more context to the meaning of that song. Because like, you know, in the video, there's like a TV that's like flashing a bunch of faces and stuff like that. Those faces like came from thispersondoesnotexist.com, which is like a generative AI that like recreates people's faces from like, I don't know, a huge catalog of LinkedIn photos and Instagram photos.
Interesting.
We kind of got in on the ground floor of AI.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah.
Somebody really popped off with that idea.
Yeah, and like that song is kind of about feeling paranoid and kind of like isolated and stuff. And I think the sort of flashing images specifically of faces that don't really exist add a different color to the meaning of those lyrics. And I think that's very important. And I don't think that song is necessarily complete without that visual element.
And I've seen, I think, a clip from y'all's tour that you're on right now where sometimes you have like some kind of visual or your name playing behind you.
Yeah, that we actually didn't come up with that. That was the venue Cine in Athens, which is an incredible venue.
Nice. I haven't been there yet. Yeah.
It's super, super cool. It's like this old movie theater, but they were nice enough to throw a visual component up there with us. We do not have enough room in the van for a projector and
I understand. I mean, like when you're touring, it's really hard, but like I would love to go to a Phantom Limb show and see someone either doing live visuals where they're making it on the spot or something that like I've got friends in Atlanta in a band called Chris Benoit where they have visuals that are specifically synced up with everything to where they have like each song is like has, you know, video and visuals that are playing during certain parts of the song. And so like theirs is kind of like synced up to a T. Although sometimes I do like the idea of like I said, the organic visuals that someone's just kind of making and it syncs up with the music pretty well. Do you guys do that kind of stuff sometimes or?
Not really. I mean, I think like, I also think that stuff is super cool. Like Rolf does a lot of like that organic visual type stuff, like with the oil and like the paint and stuff. But I think the hard part about doing visuals like that for Phantom Limb, I think at least for me, is I think having visuals on stage, I would want them to be like super intentional, I guess.
Absolutely,
and like, you know, it's like, because at least for the Pastoral stuff, because all the samples on that record are from me like driving around to thrift stores in Alabama and like finding weird unmarked cassettes and, you know, listening to them for hours on end of a preacher, like, I don't know, talking about the apocalypse or something. And I think, at least for like the Pastoral songs, which we're starting to move on from that. But for like that era of Phantom Limb, I think having super intentional visuals to go along with that would be super important to me. And it's hard to do that because there's only so much time in the day. And I think part of it is me just being
protective.
No, I get it. I think you should be that way. I was just curious because when I listen to music like yours, specifically Pastoral, it just, you know, I really love seeing the music videos because I think that that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Right.
Something along those lines that's very intentional for the songs would just be very cool. I'm just a very visual person in that way.
Yeah.
So I like to, some of my favorite shows I've ever been to have been ones where I'm not even expecting for the visuals to be that insane. And then they, you know, it just blows me away.
Well, I think most people are. I think most people are very visual. I think that's like the reason you go to live shows is because it's not just because if you just wanted to listen to music, you could listen to it on a record. But you want to get that physical experience of like being in a room where like music is happening. And also you want to see a band do something cool.
Yeah.
You know?
It's something we've also been navigating and putting extra consideration into recently is curating the live experience, not just to other dudes in bands.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, shout outs to my homies carrying the torch in the Birmingham scene, in the Atlanta scene. But it's like, you know, we kind of want to create an experience that's not just for people in the scene or even people in the other bands. Like, I want my friend from work who doesn't like listen to music like that to be able to come to a Phantom Limb show and not like go home with blood pouring out of their ears because it was too loud, or be like, yeah, that was really cool. I got something out of that.
Right. I think it's like, we want people to be able to enjoy a Phantom Limb show without having to have like years of context of like going to like shows and stuff like that. You know, it's just like, we want to make music not just for musicians, but for like everybody. You know?
And sometimes local scenes, like, I feel like this is especially true in a place like Birmingham, because it doesn't quite have like the extensive scene that somewhere like Atlanta has. But like Birmingham always kind of struck me that way, where like when I would go to a show where I was friends with someone in the band, like, you know, I might have a great time, but then I'd talk to someone else who is kind of like, it wasn't really like my thing. And I guess in general, like you said, you're having the great experience because you know that person, you were with them when they wrote the song, you know, things like that. And that's, you know, it does change the context, because like when you go to a show and you enjoy it and you don't have any context for who's on stage, especially like a local show, that's you know, it's a pretty magical thing, because not everybody gets to really do that. Yeah,
for sure. I mean, like, I think when I am thinking about the shows that changed my life, a lot of them are local shows, but like, not all of them are from Birmingham. Like this, like, I remember there used to be this like alternative newspaper in Birmingham called Black and White. Shouts out to Black and White. And they always had like a little music right up in the back.
Yeah.
And this artist named Daniel Pugel he's like a musician from Nashville. He's like a garage rock guy. And they had a write up for him in the back, and it was like, listen to this if you like Black Keys, guitar solos, and like, I don't know, jumping dirt bikes or something.
Yeah.
And that made me like listen to his music, and he's like this like really good lyricist who wrote like really catchy pop rock songs. And so I like convinced my parents to drive me up to Nashville on Record Store Day to Grimey's to go see him play, because he was like my favorite artist, right? And when I saw his band play, I didn't know any of the people in their scene. I didn't like have any context for what his band was going to sound like. They just got up on stage and like played this incredible show. And that was the point that I was like, oh yeah, I want to do that. It's something that's like attainable for me. You don't have to be like AC/DC to like be a sick musician. And I was able to enjoy that show without having the context of a scene. Yeah. And I think that's what we want to do with Phantom Limb too.
For sure.
And like it felt, we played a show in Birmingham the other night, and I kind of had an achievement unlocked moment too, because like after we got through playing, these two younger people came up to me after the show and asked for a picture. And I thought it was like really sweet. And they started talking to me, and they like told me that Guppy was one of their favorite songs.
Wow.
And a literal shiver went down my spine, because like that was a goal that I sort of set out for myself in music when I was like 17, was like, I want something that I was a part of to want someone else to like start a band. And that's something that they like expressed to me. I hope they do it. But that felt like a big achievement and a big like notch in the belt of what we're trying to do with our music broadly, but also specifically our live show of like giving people, I don't know, letting people enjoy stuff without having to be like, you know, in the music scene for 10 years.
Some of my favorite, kind of like what you were saying, some of my favorite concert experiences too are times when I had no context for who a band was, and I just walk in and they're playing something that just really resonates with me. Like a band that I've recommended on the podcast before. You're in Atlanta, so you might. They're called Psychic Death now. Are you guys playing with them in a show or something?
No, one of our friends in Knoxville, George from Basic Letters.
Yeah.
Shout out to Basic Letters. He recommended that band to us.
Yeah.
I think it's going in the queue in the van. Soon.
So
Absolutely.
I don't know if they told you what their original name was. Their original name was Rude Dude and the Creek Freaks, which I think is a fucking awesome name.
I didn't know that was the same band.
Yeah, so like I think it's all the same members. I think if I'm not mistaken, I could be talking out of my ass, but like I think it was some kind of thing where they were with a record label, and the record label technically was like, well, I think they didn't want to make another record with that label, and they said, well, you can change the band. I mean, essentially changing the band name is making it a new band.
Right.
I think that's why they did it. But I think Rude Dude and the Creek Freaks is one of the best band names I've ever heard. But I was
I agree.
I was filming a show for a band, and then they were on the lineup, and I was like outside for a minute, and I walked back in, and they were playing a song they have on their first album called Traveling Man. It's got this like heavy organ that sounds very like vintage psychedelic. And when I heard all that, I was just like, it was one of those experiences like you were talking about where I had no context really for who they were other than like some of the people I knew them. And then they're, still one of the bands I recommend all the time just because I love that album. And anyway, we're coming up on the end of the podcast, got a couple minutes left. So I just want to do something kind of fun. I mean, hopefully you guys are as neurotic, and I'm a huge fan of Seinfeld. So I just kind of, I'm a bit of a George Costanza. I want to know if you guys have any pet peeves you want to talk about.
Pet peeves.
Let's do it, because like people need to know what they're doing that's annoying out there.
I'm gonna let Peyton start on this one.
I'm starting on the pet peeves.
I mean, I can start you off.
Yeah, why don't you cook a little bit, Peter, and then...
Okay, so I mean, this is a pretty basic one, and we only, like I said, we only have a couple minutes, so if you don't think of anything one way or another. But I mean, like, I can't stand when you're in a place trying to order some food or a coffee or something, and there's a line, and you're in the line for a good minute or two, maybe 10 minutes or something, and then the person in front of you or whatever gets to the front and they're like, wait, what do I want? Yeah, what do I want? And they're like trying to figure it out because you're like, well, you were standing there for 10 minutes. Why didn't you figure that out?
They're not critical thinkers.
That's Peyton's.
That's my favorite insult right now, is to tell somebody they're not a critical thinker. Because they're not. People they just go through life, going through the motions, not a thought in their minds.
Yeah.
Oblivious.
I have a musical pet peeve.
Yes,
or
please.
just like,
Get in
I guess
there.
this is not really like a music specific pet peeve, but I really dislike when people are like, I like everything except X genre. It's usually country or something like that, right? And it bums me out when people write off an entire genre because they've heard like 3 songs that they don't like, or they have a preconceived notion about it. And maybe it's like less of something I get angry about and more that I get sad for that person, because I think people too often cut themselves off from things that they're actually going to enjoy.
Yeah.
Because they just think they know what something is about before they actually do.
Yeah.
I'll give you a 2-parter pet peeve, because they're kind of related. One is like bands that have like, $1,000 worth of pedals, like the most curated, tasteful guitar tone that you've ever heard, and then the guy's singing and he just sounds like a dying goat 100 feet down a hallway. And just like the general like fear in like the DIY music scene of like emotionally investing yourself in like singing or like trying, because like that's the scariest thing, is to try to sing and sound bad, right?
If you don't try, you can't fail.
If you don't try, you can't fail. That's something that really grinds my gears, and I think it's like a barrier thing, once again talking about like non-scene heads versus like scene music, like DIY music folks, the scenesters. Like if my friends from like work or high school come to a show, and after they're going to be like, yeah, that second band was cool. I wish I could have heard the singer. I couldn't hear anything they were saying.
Yep.
The drums were really loud though.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I know sometimes that's intentional, and that's pretty obvious when it's more intentional, but yeah, that's a pet peeve of mine too, because that seems like a modern problem. Like I feel like it's hard to listen to stuff from like the 60s and, before that and not be able to hear what they're saying, because that's just...
That's right.
Well, yeah.
It could be a casualty of the loudness war too. I think that's like maybe imitating the production of like the CD era of like studio recordings. Like people trying to sound like that live, I think is like the excuse.
Yeah.
But I think really they're just scared. The little babies are scared.
Yeah. Well, I also think like vocals are the way that non-musicians relate to music, right? So like my partner is a very creative person. She's a very talented graphic designer and stuff, but she's like not really a like music person, right? She's like a Discover Weekly, like I will listen to anything and if I like it, I like it. And like the thing that when I was mixing Pastoral, the critique that she gave me a lot and the critique that Peyton gave me a lot was like, Andrew, turn up your vocals. We can't hear them. And like I was very like hesitant to do that because it is super scary. It's a very vulnerable thing to have like something that is literally tied to your physical body, your voice, be one of the be like the first thing someone hears, right?
Yeah.
But once I kind of trusted my like friends and like circle of trust group's opinion on stuff, I think it made that record a lot better because the Townies record, the vocals are buried a lot of the time, and I'm like screaming a lot, but because of what like Peyton, Rolf, Samantha, like their feedback made me focus a lot more on the actual vocal performance of that record. And I think it made it a lot better because of it.
I think it paid off because, I mean, I'm sure you've gotten this. The immediate comparisons I make are Animal Collective and the Beach Boys in terms of the vocals. I mean, have you heard? I mean, I'm sure you've heard that before.
Oh yeah. Well, those two are like those are the faves. Yeah. And I like Noah Lennox, aka Panda Bear, kind of look like Brian Wilson, or so I've been told.
I was gonna mention it. I was like, especially when I was watching some of the music videos, I was like, he does resemble Brian Wilson, like a certain era, especially.
I actually showed Andrew's partner a picture of a young Brian Wilson, and didn't say that it was Brian Wilson, and they thought it was a picture of Andrew, and they said Andrew looks a little weird in that picture.
I was gonna say, especially since like if you dress the right way, there's no you look pretty similar. Yeah, that's funny.
Well, you guys have the same eye color too.
Yeah, and
it's like the greeny blue.
Yeah, it was,
and like the sad face.
It's all good. It's all. I mean, it is a matter of fact. And it was a lot. I looked a lot more like Brian Wilson when I was in high school too, because we both had like the Q-tip swoosh.
Yeah,
you know?
Nice.
The southern swoop.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, I think we're probably going to wrap things up. Yeah. I mean, thank you for going over some pet peeves. I could go over those all day. It's really, you know, y'all been on tour, so I'm sure they just keep like coming up in your mind where you're like, I don't like how venues do this or other bands do that, you know, because it's like you're just going to get a lot of things like that on tour. Yeah. But before we go, what do y'all want to promote? Do you have any like things coming up, like album releases or shows that you're excited about, anything like that?
Yeah, we have a show in Athens at Flickr on July 7th.
Nice.
With Ashley Wingo. And we have a show on, let me look at the date really quick, in a momento.
Sure.
We're going to pull out the old phone.
I was going to say, Peyton, what's the Instagram is just Phantom Limb, isn't it? Or Phantom...
__Limb. We relate to the game.
Yeah, there you go.
Phantom Limb was long gone by the time we were on Instagram.
I mean, my Instagram is just PsychoActivision, and I assumed since I got the Instagram that no one had that on YouTube, but there is someone who already took that on YouTube, and they have a lot more followers than me, and I'm like, how did someone, you know, but anyway, great minds think alike.
Exactly. June 23rd on Interspace, we're playing a benefit show that's going to be fun. And we have one more coming up.
Interspace is in Atlanta.
Interspace
for
is
the
in
fans
Atlanta.
out there. Atlanta Underground.
Yes.
Very cool place to hang out.
Yeah.
Not weird at all. No.
You're making it sound weird by how you're qualified.
I'm just kidding. Interspace is sick. And so is Atlanta Underground. For the uninitiated, you got to see it to believe it.
So I mean, anyway, well, we'll go over it after the podcast, but I'll let you guys, you know, get out of here. It's been really fun talking to you, getting to know more about these albums that I've been really enjoying. And I mean, I guess you guys need to get to the show, and I'm going to, go to and get to see you live for the first time.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for the kind words. That really that means a lot. That's really cool. It's always like super cool to like hear someone, get something out of music that you helped make. It's really cool. It
resonated with me. And I think that y'all have something good that I think is going to resonate with other people too.
Yeah. Thanks.
Cool, man. Well, bye, y'all. This has been Phantom Limb on PsychoActivision Presents.
Bye.
Thanks, Peter.